In this video, we'll take a look at the various ways that Platt can be set up to enforce rules relating to care worker training and qualifications. I'll briefly cover existing functionality in this area before looking at some new options that will be included in the next update to Platt. As you may already know, Platt enables you to define a list of training types using this Employment tab on your organization page. In the case of DemoCare, 3 training types have been set up. This induction course, which is conducted online, a moving and handling course, which is conducted as a single-day classroom event, and this specialist training course, which is a multi-day classroom event which care workers can either pass or fail. Once we've defined our list of training types, there are a number of places where we can set up rules defining the necessary training for care workers. The first of these is using the Employment Requirements tab of the organization page. This tab is used to define the requirements for an applicant to become an inductee to begin probation, and finally, to be accepted fully in post. This Employment Requirements tab is covered in detail in a previous video looking at features of Platt relating to care worker employment status. As we've not made any changes here in the next release of Platt, I won't go into detail about this tab, but let's take a quick look at the setup for DemoCare. We notice that to become an inductee, an applicant is required to have been given access to the online induction course. And to be accepted in post, they need to have completed that course, and their attendance of the moving and handling training needs to have been planned. You'll notice that care workers are not required to have completed the specialist training type that we saw on the Employment tab earlier in order to become an in-post employee. As the name implies, this is because specialist training is not a global requirement. It is, however, required on a more selective basis for care workers who are scheduled to particular events. Platt provides a number of places where more selective training rules can be defined. The first of these is requirements that may apply to particular types of event. If we look at the event types list for DemoCare, we see this special event type. Any event type with has service user and has care worker ticked will provide this training tab, from which you can define which types of training care workers will be required to have completed before being assigned to events of this type. Each entry on this tab defines a single requirement. In each case, requirements can be defined with one or more options. So in this case, induction or moving and handling. So reading across the page, care workers will require this or this training type and this training type. This tab is not a new feature of Platt. However, the next release will include a small enhancement with the introduction of this new requirement applies from field. Using this field, you can specify a future date for each requirement to become mandated. So, any requirements that we define here will apply to all events of this type, regardless of who the service user might be. New in the next version of Platt, care worker training requirements can now be defined on an even more selective basis. Consider the scenario where you have an individual service user with particular training needs. In this case, you'll now be able to open the service user record and use this new Requirements tab to define training requirements for any care workers assigned to events for this service user. Requirements specified here will apply to all of this service user's contact events, regardless of their type, the time of day, or what individual tasks are due to be completed. If there are certain requirements that only apply to some of the service user's events, requirements can alternatively be set up against individual events by opening the tabbed view of the relevant event and then using this new Requirements tab. Requirements that are set up here do not need a Requirements Applies From field that we've seen elsewhere because they apply specifically to this event on the date or dates on which it falls. Notice how this event has already been assigned to care worker Holly Golightly, and when we attempt to save it, I'm prevented from doing so as Holly has not completed the specialist training course. So, to summarize, in this video we've seen how Platt enables you to define rules requiring care workers to have completed all of the necessary training. These rules can apply globally, requiring all care workers to complete the required training before progressing from applicant to in-post employee, or more selectively, either to events of particular types, to events for only certain service users, or even to individual events.